Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Blacklogic. Have some very informative updates for you guys for your news updates for this evening. So let's get right to it because the trade war is heating up and President Trump issued a stark ultimatum to China. Retract your 34% retaliatory tariffs on U.S. goods by April 8th or face an additional 50% tariff on Chinese imports starting on April 9th, the very next day. And believe me, this aggressive move comes after China's recent tariff hike of 34%, which was in itself a response to the U.S. initial 34% tariffs. Now, the president made his intentions clear via Truth Social, stating that all discussions with China will be determined if they fail to comply. And this escalation has sent shockwaves throughout the entire world, especially the global markets, as they are responding. With investors like myself and like you guys are embracing for further volatility in the market. So again, this is far from being over. This is in its infancy. This is in its beginning stages. So again, there's still a lot to come. We have to stay tuned in. If you're new to Blacklogic, please hit the subscribe button so you guys are aware and notified every time I go live or release a video. Thank you for joining me here this evening. Now, and across the Atlantic, the European Commission isn't sitting idly by. In retaliation to President Trump's tariffs on steel and aluminum, the U.S. as well as the EU have proposed counter-tariffs. Now, the counter-tariffs on the way of the EU Commission, 25% on a range of U.S. goods. And these tariffs are set to be implemented in stages, with some taking effect on May 16th and others on December 1st. The targeted goods are diverse, including diamonds, eggs, dental floss, sausages, poultry. And these are very notable items, you know, like bourbon, wine, and dairy have been removed. They totally removed them from the initial list to mitigate potential economic fallout. And this strategic response, it really underscores the EU's intent to defend its economic interests while avoiding a full-blown trade war. As you notice, Donald Trump, President Trump, he automatically given China by the 16th, by the 8th of this month, which is tomorrow, to retract their 34% retaliatory tariff, or he will increase his tariffs, an additional tariff to 50%. So my question to the EU is, why are you waiting? Why are you giving the U.S. time to recruit, to recover? You're stating you're going to wait till May 16th, and then other tariffs will be imposed by December 1st. Why the grace period? That's the only question I have when it regarding that particular story, because again, a lot of these countries, the EU, China, Mexico, as well as Canada, are thinking about retaliatory tariffs if they not already proposed them or imposed them rather. So again, a lot of countries are speaking out. They're taking actions in the very revengeful retaliatory tariffs. Now, we're all aware with this story because in a very, a very significant legal development, the Supreme Court has intervened to pause the deportation of Kilmar Abrego Gracia. And he is a resident of Maryland who was mistakenly sent to El Salvador. And Chief Justice John Roberts issued the stay responding to the Trump administration request to halt a lower court's order demanding Garcia's return by midnight. And this case has ignited debates across due process and the right of individuals facing deportation. Now, the Department of Homeland Defense has defended its actions, with officials stating that the due process does look different for individuals they allege are involved in gang activities. So even though he is a legal resident, they're stating that he is involved some way, somehow of gang activity. Now, as our government under the regime, under the administration of Donald Trump, and the transparency we have had when it comes to Doge and all the fraud, waste, abuse in the government, Can we start publicizing a lot of high profile cases? Like actually show, and some people like, well, that's a lot of legality. There's going to be a lot of information that could be misunderstood and misconstrued by the public. But after a case has already, I guess, closed or been thrown out, dismissed, or someone has been prosecuted, can they just reveal the evidence that they had so the public, so the American citizen can kind of comb through themselves and really be objective or subjective, depending on how the trial went? Because again, what evidence do they have on Garcia to keep him in an El Salvadorian prison, and he had no warrants out for his arrest, as far as my knowledge? Okay, he had no warrants out for his arrest, but in a mistaken identity, okay, they made a mistake, and he ends up in an El Salvadorian prison, and you're trying to keep him there. We're being so transparent. Just reveal the evidence that you have that he's guilty of said crime. That's only fair, because again, whether you be an American citizen or a resident, a legal resident, do not forget the words of the El Salvadorian president. He's stating that we will take illegal immigrants and we will take American citizens who are the most violent criminals. Okay, well, you state, I'm not a violent criminal. I have nothing to worry about. Well, what if you are gang related, cartel related, 1% white nationalists, black nationalists related to a lot of groups? Then they can essentially make a mistake and you end up in an El Salvadorian prison. And then they say, oh, well, we have possible evidence that he has gang ties or she has gang ties. You see how this can go down a very muddy path, and how they can really dirty the waters even with a legal resident, and how that can be potentially transcended over to an American citizen. And what I mean by that is this could easily been an American citizen. And some people all know that would never happen. Well, we've seen the least of this happen. So again, I want to keep you guys very mindful of that. And again, you might have a different stance on that, but I think it's imperative that we look at this very neutrally and very unbiased. So here's another component. There are a lot of American families that have people who have married in their family by a daughter, by a son, by an aunt, or uncle, or a nephew, a niece, so on and so forth. And they are from a different country. They're a different nationality. They may have a green card, a visa, legal residency, etc. Think about someone who may be closer related or a friend of yours. When we're speaking about a legal resident that they mistakenly sent to an El Salvador prison, to now, are you mistakenly trying to keep him there? Or now you're stating he has gang-related activities, or he's somehow related to a gang. I'm not stating this is true or false. I'm just stating, is it possible to provide the public with this evidence? Is it a videotape of a handoff of him, of a known gang member? Like, what do you have? Do you have tape recordings? Anything? You have a receipt? I don't know. Those are just the questions that I'm asking. Because I believe when we look at this, the international community is grappling with how to respond to the escalating U.S. trade war in nations worldwide. Because as we are assessing the strategy, with some seeking negotiations and others preparing retaliatory measures, the European Union has expressed a preference for dialogue, but remains to prepare to implement countermeasures to protect its own personal interests. And China, on the other hand, has taken a more confrontational stance, imposing its own tariffs and accusing the U.S. of economic bullying. And this is a very complex web of actions and reactions, and left global markets in a state of flux, with investors uncertain about the future or the trajectory of international trade relations. No one knows what's going to happen with their 401k or their futures or their indexes. No one knows in their traditional or their Roth accounts, or even their personal private company stock accounts or your personal investor accounts. Because I've shown my portfolio here many a times, and I'm already down $10,000 in the market. And people will say, Donald Trump, and I would agree. Again, the reason why we're always saying the market, and during this time, the market is on sale, everything is at a very, very low price. And not to give you advice, but me personally, I go and buy the market because this is a time where the market is down, and we've seen over history that the market always bounced back, and it bounced back to even break records. So again, you got to be in it for the long haul, only if you can afford it. Now, the mounting tariff battles are stoking fears of impeding recessions. And this is what people were stating: recession, recession, recession. It's funny because President Trump would say tariff, tariff, tariffs, what a beautiful word. And now I'm saying recession, recession, recession. That's a very ugly word because major financial institutions have raised their recession forecasts, citing that the disruptive impact of trade tensions on economic growth, that it can be very stifled in some regards. But what exactly constitutes a recession? Like, we've had this debate, this dialogue, this back and forth for many years. You hear it on TV, on business channel, on political channels and such. And everybody's giving their take on what a recession is. And here's what we never really understand about a recession. Like, we have to have all these markers and indicators. This has to be going on, by this has to be going on, and this has to be going on. We're not in recession unless all these things are working collaboratively together to decline the market. BS, because if multiple of Americans are out of work, they're unemployed, they're in a recession, not because you guys, deem or label or classify as a recession, because they are going through a recession. I know someone understood what I was getting at there, because again, they try to make it like it's this governmental thing where it's the people. The government is this body, this entity where people fulfill cabinet positions and they just kind of do the work of the people, or at least they pretend to do the work of the people. But nonetheless, typically a recession is defined by 2 consecutive quarters of declining GDP. But the official designation often comes from bodies like the National Bureau of Economic Research, which considers a wide range of economic indicators. Because as tariff begin to bite into corporate profits and consumer prices, the specter of recession looms very large, because we're prompting calls for strategic economic planning and policy responses. So again, 2 quarters. And some people argue 2 quarters is either 6 to 8 months. So let's look inside the 6 to 8 months that we have declining, 2 consecutive quarters that we have a declining GDP. That is the only thing that you need to know. Oh, where we have to have a high rate of unemployment, inflation must be up, the banks must charge this per percentage because people are not buying cars and people are not buying houses. No, for 2 consecutive quarters, if the GDP of our country declines, we're in a recession. Just like we had a recession 2 years ago, it was one of those soft recessions that a lot of people really want to speak on, but we were definitely in a recession. Now, the cryptocurrency market isn't immune to the broader economic jitters, because Bitcoin has tumbled into its lowest point in 2025. I thought I saw it around $70-something thousand today, because it dropped as much as 5.5%. And this decline has had a ripple effect on the U.S. listed crypto companies with firms like MicroStrategy, which holds up substantial Bitcoin assets, seeing their shares fall over 10%. And this downturn reflects a broader retreat from riskier assets as investors seek safe havens in escalating trade tensions and market volatility. I say buy. I say buy. That's what I essentially do. Matter of fact, let's pop up Bitcoin very quickly here. Look like it's went on the positive there. I'm up almost 2%. So let's go to Bitcoin. So, okay, on the upper end of the 70,000, 70,000. And of course, with Bitcoin, if you're not used to investing Bitcoin, you can take $5 to invest in, at least $5 to invest in right here on Robinhood. I'm not promoting, guys. This is one of the platforms I use. Okay, so right now, my total return, I'm still 80% return with Bitcoin, even because I bought it in at $44,000. And do not forget that they are predicting that Bitcoin is going to reach $200,000 by next year or mid next year. So again, even though I bought it in a low point and I just continually to invest little by little, look at me, I don't even have a full share of Bitcoin or a full coin, that is. I'm only at 0.210. Okay, that's a fraction of a coin. But look at my total return. I can cash out and make $7,000 right now. So again, as Bitcoin is not going anywhere for a very long time, it's probably a good thing, if you don't have any cryptocurrencies, to diversify your portfolio. That's all. Just diversify your portfolio. Last but not least, as I told you at the end of these broadcasts, I want to give you either something funny or intriguing or something that sparks your interest. In this case, I'm just going to give you something very intriguing because this is about a Black American who went over to live in Ghana. Now, me personally, I've been to Ghana. When people were given their accounts, when they arrived to the grounds of Ghana, they felt the energy and connection. I didn't feel any of that. I'm not joking. My wife and I and my son, we went to Ghana a couple of years ago. And when I went to the Cape Coast Castle and went to all these historical places in Ghana where Marcus Garvey's was. But nonetheless, excuse me, not Marcus Garvey, I think it was Frederick Douglass. Forgot the person who has a house there. Maybe it's Marcus Garvey. But when I got there, I didn't feel a connection to the ground. It's a very different people. Okay. They look different. We have the same skin complexion. Okay. Without a doubt. But there's different phenotype constructions. And then the most important thing, if we get past all the physical, there was no spiritual connection, number one. Then two, there was no relation of culture. So how many years do Black Americans have to be removed before people stop calling people who are native born to the land? And we're talking about 3, 4, 5 generations back from 1526, from which we can be recorded. How many generations do we have to remove for people to stop saying African American, where we're just American, or if you want to put a race on it, because we do recognize race in America, as a Black American? That's just like saying there's people all over, okay? There's all over that people have come to America, first or second generation from Europe, and no one puts on European American. So we have to fight people that look like us, fight people who are different from us, just so we can drop this. But anyway, I want her to tell you her experience over there in Ghana. I wouldn't move to Ghana. I'm not saying that it's a bad country or anything about the people. I think the people are very nice. They have a very loving culture. Again, from my experience, the people were very nice. Okay. I went to Kenya. The people were very nice. I went to South Africa. The people were very nice. But would I want to live in any of those countries? I think there were certain parts of South Africa that were absolutely beautiful and gorgeous. I could actually see me living there. Now, going back to Ghana, some of my reasoning is because of the bugs. You have to almost sleep in a mosquito net. I'm not stating everywhere, but in the area that I was, our hotels had these nets that you kind of went inside your bed with because, again, mass amount of mosquitoes. I don't know if they crop dust or anything like that to decrease the amount of mosquitoes. And also, they have a lot of red dust that flies through the country, and people are almost washing their cars every day. Again, this is my experience. Not speaking bad down on the country. Also, driving on some of the roads, you can be on a paved road 1 minute, unpaved road the next minute. So that speaks to infrastructure. So again, if I were to ever move outside this wonderful monster that we call America, then there's a lot of things it will have to be comparable to America because this is the standard that I'm used to. But nonetheless, I'll get off my rant and I'll let her tell her accounts.
So apparently the Ghanaian government has given out land to African Americans to develop their own community. Like, what is happening here? I'm African American, and this is not even a project that I would be in favor in. Because I can't figure out for the life of me, what is all this segregation about? I'm starting to feel like it's African Americans over here and Ghanaians over here. Like, why are we painting this picture of separation? I feel like it's a common goal to continue to keep us separated as a people. We've been separated since slavery. This is 2025. And you mean to tell me we still can't get this together? See, what's sad is, I would expect something like this in America, but I would never expect something like this right in our own country that's full of Black people. This is 2025. South Africa is still experiencing areas where Black people are not welcome. How can a Black person be in Africa and not be welcome in their own country? Like, am I the only one that sees the wrong in all of this? Like, where is the rest of like-minded people? Like, please, where are we? It's time to wake up. And just for the record, I'm never in favor of African Americans being over here and Ghanaians being over here. We are all one people. Who raised y'all?
Well, I don't know who raised her, but the all we one people, that's untrue. When you're considering the Black race, yes, we are, but we are very, very different people. See, that is that sort of monolithic sort of mind view that all Black people are the same. And we are absolutely different. Black Americans are different from Black British people. Black British people are different from people who grew up actually on the continent. Caribbean people are different than Black Americans. Caribbeans are different from Africans. They're just different. We're just different people. We're not. You grow up on a continent around amongst yourselves, then you were colonized. We grew up on a continent and 3 or 4 of our generations were enslaved. We have different experiences. So we are different people. Same race, different people though. Different culture, different environments, calls for a different culture. That is the component she's not looking at. Now, granted, Africa is a Black continent, but again, understanding the vast history of colonization, then she would understand going over to Africa that they are still, a lot of them, not all, I won't even say a lot of them, I will say a good many of them have a colonized mind. They have a colonized mind. They even historically know about when the European enslavers came in. They brought in Jesus Christ. Can we get on religion real quickly? And this is not to offend your belief system. But before the missionaries came over with the enslavers, most of the tribes, most of the countries, they prayed to an African ancestral spirit, someone that actually walked the earth, someone who actually lived, and they were really good people. They did really good things, and they will pray to that spirit. But when the enslavers came over, they were trying to impose Christianity on the Ghanaians, and they wouldn't accept it. They said, no, we have our own religious system. So what they did, they took a couple of Ghanaians and they sent them to Great Britain or England, okay? They made him clergymen, they made him priests, and then brought him back to Ghana. And then people started to convert into Christianity. So what she don't understand is we're talking about hundreds of years of people being colonized by what they believe is a superior person. Maybe because the achievements but even though they know that they were colonized, they were like enslaved in their own country to a certain degree, where they didn't control the economics of their country or the government of their country or the infrastructure of their country. And then one day, colonizers left. But this is after 100 years of stealing all your resources. And they just kind of threw the government at you, or they put puppets in place. That's why anytime you speak to some of your African friends of why a lot of them may come to America and are they ever going to move back home? And they say, and you ask them, why is your country in this condition, or why is this happening? The only thing they will ever tell you, majority of them, in my opinion, it's the government. And then I'll just ask a simple question. Do the people outnumber the government? Like, yeah, the people outnumber the government. And here's the last question. Are any of your people willing to die for that change? Because Americans have died for change. If a country is not willing to change the regime and die because of change, then your country will never change. But if you look at the history of America, whether it be white or black Americans, we have died to change the country through protests. Some people in military formats, where the government had to have a standoff and actually change legislation. So we have a history. So you going over to Ghana and experience this is nothing new to me. Now, I'm not stating that her experience is a reflection of all Ghanaian people. I would never say that because, again, they're really lovely people. My driver while I was over there was named Eric, very honorable guy. Anybody who wants to go to Ghana, believe me, I will give you his number. Very honorable guy, very trustworthy guy. He protected me and my family, make sure we didn't get ripped off. He actually got upset. He wouldn't let people come close to us. He very, very, very honorable guy, Eric. For Ghana. But nonetheless, I thank you guys for joining me here this evening. You guys have a great and wonderful night. This is Blacklogic.